In the world of cheesy, collectible, promotional guitars of Gibson, there are the big three. Today, I have one of them. Welcome back, Troglodytes, to your daily dose of guitar information, the Trogly's Guitar Show. I did it, guys. I found one. After all these years, I found one of the most ridiculous Gibson promotional guitars that ever exists. I love this in an ironic and in a non-ironic way. This is the King Mac Daddy of promotional guitars. So if you're confused what I'm even talking about here, in the late 90s, early 2000s, Gibson would partner with literally any company who wanted to have a signature guitar or do like a promotional thing within their company, even sell some of these things. So we've got companies like Underwear, Fruit of the Loom getting signature The Hawks. Got a whole plethora of Nascar-styled guitars. You've got things like the Donzi Les Paul, a whole slew of Playboy-influenced Gibsons. And honestly, there's so many of them, I'm just gonna have to put them on the screen right here. It's hard to keep track of all the different companies, but I love seeing new examples surface to the market every year because there's some really interesting stuff. But the big three that are super collectible, in my opinion anyways, are the ones that went above and beyond. They're not traditional Gibson body shapes. Look at this thing. It is massive. So what are the big three, you're asking? It's the Playboy Bunny head guitar, the Zippo lighter guitar, and then last but not least, my absolute favorite. Oh, I can't wait to see this in person. It's ridiculous. It's a NASCAR race car guitar. Oh, I love this thing. Like, I don't even care about NASCAR, but I don't care who you are. Race cars are cool. So mix race car with Gibson and make it an official product. And yeah, this is an absolute dream to finally own. Because trust me, guys, you cannot get Gibson to build you custom-shaped bodied guitars anymore. This was a once-in-a-lifetime type thing when the custom shop was still kind of new. Like, you gotta remember, that opened in late 1993, so this one was likely birthed around the late 90s, early 2000s, because they called this the Gibson Rocks NASCAR, or more appropriately, like NASCAR Rocks America signature guitar. And this was a promotional thing for NASCAR in the late 90s. Like, you can look online and find 1999 Hot Wheels cars with the same branding on it. So that tells me this is likely about when these things were made, and that lines up perfectly with all these other promotional guitars. Rather simple as far as the guitar goes, just a wrap tail piece with a P90. They've got a really gaudy Gibson Rocks NASCAR inlay for the fretboard, but that appears to be ebony. As far as the race car goes, I mean, sure, the guitar's that shape, but this is just a sticker. It's not actually painted on, so it's like a decal. Sometimes these things can shrink, like you can see some shrinkage happening here. We saw that on the last NASCAR Cafe guitar that we had documented. And on the back, unfortunately, no additional sticker, but hey, look at that output jack placement. Cool. And what makes this all even better is it's a custom shop. It's not like rinky-dinky Gibson USA. I mean, nothing wrong with the USAs, but it's full-on custom shop. So yeah, this is staying in my personal collection. But what if I told you I have not one NASCAR car guitar, but two? Yeah, that's right. I've always wanted to document this guitar, but the opportunity arose to not get one ridiculous race car, but two. So obviously, there's a story that I need to elaborate on here with these, so let's go ahead and do that now. So Gibson made approximately 50 of these, according to the dealer that I got this from, and they held 4 of them back for warranty purposes. Say whoever bought it or won it, you know, the neck bowed out on them or something went bad. This is a common practice that Gibson does. They'll hold some of these back just in case they need to replace the guitar. But just recently, in 2017, they decided, okay, these are good. Nobody's ever going to need us to replace theirs. Let's go ahead and sell it off. You know, we're still within the Juskowitz era. We hadn't quite moved into the modern day stuff. Otherwise, we would have seen these things get purged in like the demo shop or something. So how do I know this was in 2017? Attached to this box that the dealer sent to me is actually the original Gibson packing list. So we got Gibson Musical Instruments as the sender, sent to Total Entertainment DJ Incorporated in Daytona Beach, Florida. That's the name of a dealer, so I don't think they care if I tell you where to go to shop at their store. It's actually pretty cool. But basically the story goes is they called up this dealer in Daytona Beach, Florida, you know, a big NASCAR spot, and was like, hey, we've got these ridiculous NASCAR car guitars from the early 2000s, late 90s. Are you interested? And he's like, heck yes, I am. If you're gonna find somebody to buy a race car guitar, it's likely going to be near one of the races, right? So he got 4 of them, number 14, number 5, number 10, and number 13. And he's been slowly listing these on Reverb, and I didn't even realize it. I missed all the other ones, but he seemed to have staggered them out a few years. So one day, one of my guitar dealer friends sent me the listing, and he's like, oh man, look at this ridiculous thing. And by the time I got his message, I said, you have ruined my day. I can't believe I missed it. I missed the opportunity for the NASCAR car guitar. So I'm messaging that seller. It's like, hey, if that guy does not come through with payment, I will pay your asking price. That's how much I want that thing. But then once I had sent that message to my buddy, that's when he was like, oh yeah, custom shop guitar. Yeah, I picked that thing up. So I didn't even realize that at that time. It's like, of course he paid for it. So it's like, I didn't expect even a response from the dealer. But then the next morning, he goes, that's fantastic you want to pay this much money for it because I have another one. And I was like, oh my goodness, be still my heart. And then he was like, oh yeah, it's way better than that other one I just sold. It's in much cleaner shape. I mean, looking at this one, this has not faded anywhere near as much as this one. I mean, that's kind of yellowed over. This one is much cleaner. So I closed the deal on this one thinking, oh yeah, that's great. I finally have one of these things and it's going to be one of the cleaner ones. All right. But then my buddy was like, hey, you've been helping me out a lot so much. I want to offer this guitar to you at my cost. And it's like, I really appreciate that, man. But he had another one. And do I really need 2 NASCAR car guitars? Heck yes, I do. I'm going to use this one as trade fodder. I want the complete set. I want the Playboy Bunny head, not because I necessarily care about the Playboy company. It's more so I'm just a Gibson fanatic, and that thing is ridiculous. I also want the Zippo lighter one, but I will not pay the $7,000 that the one on Reverb has been trying to sell for 7 years. These are things that need to be in my future museum, so I'll use that as trade fodder if anybody has the other ones. But get this, in doing some research on this one, I found there's not one, but there's 2 different NASCAR car guitars. And let me tell you, I definitely want that other one because it's a Jimmy Dean sausage car. That one's car number 30, whereas this one's number 56. But instead of saying Gibson rocks NASCAR, it just completes the Jimmy Dean down here. You've got the Jimmy Dean logo on here. That is such a ridiculous guitar. I love it. Now, I'm sure there's NASCAR fans out there that just like it because of the driver. I think his signature might be on the fretboard too, something like that. But I just think it's funny as far as promotional guitars go. Man, it's really tempting to send one of these to like JJN. This is what he likes. He likes the 1P90 Rap Tails. And for him to gig with one of these would just be hilarious. So sure, they might not be the most desirable car-influenced guitar that Gibson has done. That probably goes to like the GT SGs. You've got the Corvette and the Stingray models. Those are way more collectible and desirable to your average collector, but hey, I'm not your average collector. I like weird stuff. So let's go ahead and throw my personal collection one on the workbench, take an individual look at its parts and specs, and then get racing down to a play-in demo. It's time to take a look under the hood of our Pontiac Grand Prix Gibson signature race car. I can't get over how much I love this doofy thing. So it's actually really simple. It appears to be a straight up mahogany body. We'll see that on the back. The wood grain actually runs like this direction rather than up and down, so I thought that was kind of strange, but hey, it's what they did. We've got a single P90 pickup in here. There's no markings on the back or anything like that, so that is error correct for this one. And hey, I was actually able to find the exact year that this one came out, 1999. I looked in the compartment of the case, and lo and behold, we have the original warranty pamphlet on this one. The old style Gibson custom shop when it was called Custom Art Historic. So they flipped this on the backside, 10/12/1999. So they were very late 99s. However, what makes this warranty replacement one really interesting is since they didn't leave the factory for nearly 20 years, in 2017 this got a real Gibson custom one. So this particular one is number 10. I think the other one I have is number 5. But anyways, here's what the route looks like. Nothing too fancy, just your standard P90 route. There does not appear to be any type of like maple top, so I'm guessing just a mahogany body. They mount that with 2 screws and 2 springs. As far as our wrap tail piece, it's just your standard lightning bar one. So you can adjust your intonation using these 2 screws. That looks error correct to me as well. So the only part left is one of the coolest ones. Look at these knobs. So the Jimmy Dean car actually gets black knobs, but this thing is stylized after the thing that secures your tires. I'm not much of a car guy, but I helped my stepdad change brake pads once when I was like 8. And I vaguely remember this shape being around the tire, so the fact that that's on a tire, that's pretty cool. But it's kind of like one of those knurled knobs. It just attaches to it using one of those screws, but that's definitely a nice little touch there. So as I was telling you guys earlier, this is essentially like a decal or a sticker that's just placed right on top of it. And there's a few different levels of promotional guitars. I feel like this one doesn't age too well because you can see things like right here where it kind of cracks as the wood expands and contracts and the decal stays the same. Other areas like right here where the decal actually wasn't completely flat. Now switching over to my other example, some of them can get pretty bad as far as like actual tears in the decal. And that's not because these things were played, it was just because of how these things were stored. I'm guessing this one, due to the color difference in the lacquer being yellow versus more white, this was probably in a window display hung up at Gibson somewhere. And the heat of the sun caused the decal to crack. But it's definitely under some sort of like a clear coat. You can't pick away at that. But you can't see it looks a little bit sloppy looking in some areas just because of how they cut it out. For them to like bolt on the graphic, like sometimes you'll see on like the more Les Paul special styled instruments where they just have screws going around it. Those are my least favorite promotional guitars because they kind of feel lazy to me. And then obviously the top tier are the ones that they actually paint and they do hand inlaid stuff. So this is like mid-grade promotional level. However, it gets bumped up because they gave it a custom body shape, which is something that Gibson just doesn't do. Believe me, I've tried to get them to reissue a particular meme guitar that has a non-traditional body shape and they wouldn't do it despite me throwing all the money at them. But I'm sure you're curious about our dimensions here. It's about 1.77 inches thick, so like a Les Paul special. At the widest part with its wheel, it's about 10 inches. And then from where the neck meets the body, about 21¼ inches. So is it comfortable to play? I mean, you've got this little bump here to rest your leg against, but I think the most comfortable way to play this is act like it's a flying V that just doesn't have your helpful cutout here. You have to play it classical style, but you can play it normal style too if you really want to. But it says Pontiac Grand Prix up here, then you get your NASCAR Rocks America logo. What would have made me absolutely love this guitar even more is if they had like a doofy race car driver in here just smiling at you. I mean, obviously he'd probably need to have a helmet on, but having a guy in here would have been funny. But it says 56 on the top, 56 on the side, with Gibson Custom Art Historic on the edge. Got some Eagle Goodyear tires that you can see a little bit better there. NASCAR Select Simpson 76 wicks, all that good stuff is present. Now we move on to the fretboard. So how many frets do we have on this bad boy? It does have 22 medium jumbo frets. However, it appears to join at the 15th fret. So I mean, it's possible to get all there, but it definitely starts to become a little bit more inconvenient. You have to put your hand over the side. But our inlay here is not mother of pearl. It might look like it, but that's actually just pretty decent pearloid looking stuff. It says Gibson Rocks NASCAR. Find it funny that your Gibson guitar has to have Gibson on literally everything. Inlaid on the fretboard, on the headstock, on the guitar here. They just need it plastered on the back too. I suppose we should double check the scale length. I almost thought for a second it was 25 inches, but no, it's 24 3/4. It appears to be the standard 12-inch radius. But as far as our neck specs, we get 1.69 inches at the nut, 2.06 by the 12th, 0.83 first fret neck depth, then by the 12th, 0.96. Though I'd say the 10th fret, 0.91 is probably a little bit more accurate because the heel kind of starts right there. The neck is a nice rounded C-shaped profile. It gets a little bit more exaggerated towards the 12th that you're seeing here. This is the 1st fret. As far as the headstock goes, you pop off our blank truss rod cover. You can see it has a mahogany neck. And there's the cover itself. Then you get your NASCAR decal and a real Gibson mother of pearl logo right here. Now this one's got some scuffs and things around the edges, and I could clean and polish this thing up. However, I'm kind of scared to. I know this has something over it, but heaven forbid if that makes it shrink even more. I would like to keep, this one that's relatively clean in good shape. And yeah, the NASCAR logo on the top, it's kind of ugly, but it works with this one. The Jimmy Dean one looks a bit more tasteful. But you will notice this is an unbound fretboard. It's probably because they didn't want to bind the guitar. That would have actually looked pretty sweet, I think. Have like a white layer around that to really help pop the car. I don't know, at the same time, that might have stole the show. Moving on to the backside, let's see if I can show you what I was telling you about earlier. So if you hold it up at an angle at the light, you can see all the wood grain because the lacquer's just sunk. So it kind of goes diagonally. So that means the board of wood was probably like this, and then they shaped it out from that. That's a cool little fact that you might not have ever noticed about one of these, had I had not documented it here. But you've got your strap button right here, and then the other one is down there. Once again, your output jack is located on the side. It's kind of like one of those barrel style ones. But what's really fascinating to me anyways, is generally you have wires, right? But the output jack just has this metal lug that just like connects off of it, and then they soldered that directly to the pot. That is a Gibson branded pot in there, and that's what it looked like stock from the factory. Oddly enough, not directly in the center of the route. And the route kind of has like little bunny ears to it. Then you actually have two routes within the body, one for your grounding tab that goes to your bridge, and then the other one goes to your pickup cavity. And the cover they use for it is just a regular Les Paul toggle switch one. But check this neck out. Your heel is sculpted, kind of. It's like at an angle anyways, because here it is straight on. But there appears to have been like a really deep wood grain area or a chip in the neck before they finished it that you can see in the light right there. I mean, the lacquer's really sunk on this guitar. I mean, you can especially see it on the headstock right here when I get the light on it. But there's our custom shop decal and our serial number, GRN10. And as far as tuners go, we're rocking Grovers. As far as the sides of the guitar, there's no contours or anything like that to make it comfortable. It's just kind of a blocky guitar, but at least the neck isn't like super hoisted up like it could have been. Pretty much it's just the fretboard and a little bit of the neck sticking up there. And the action's pretty okay on this one. And the thing you're probably most curious about is how much does this thing weigh? I mean, that's a pretty big body, but surprisingly not too bad. 8 pounds, 5.9 ounces. Let's go ahead, plug it in, and hear how a race car guitar sounds. we've had our fun with this NASCAR race car guitar. Let's go ahead and do some basic tones out of this, just in case that gets copyright claimed. So just in case you didn't notice, this actually does not even have a tone control. Now, you could put like a stacked tone control on here that controls volume and tone if you wanted to do some modifications and you happen to found one of these. Because generally, you kind of want a tone to help shape your one pickup guitars, but hey, we can use our volume to kind of roll it back. It is a pretty responsive pickup as far as that goes. Yeah, getting the higher registers here, not quite ultra comfortable, but you can get it if you need to. Now when you roll that down a bit, it almost becomes a little bit more single coil-like. Now let's try some distortion again. So you can at least play around with your volume tones. To get from this got a good country vibe to it. So now that my lifelong dream of documenting the Gibson race car guitar is done, what are my final thoughts on this thing? Man, these strings, I probably should have changed them. I thought they were going to be good enough, but not quite. They just didn't want to stay in tune. So yeah, sorry, that's my bad. But I'm sure I'm going to make more than one video on this thing. I really want to see dueling guitar solos happen with two skilled players playing NASCAR car guitars. Because that would just be epic, right? So guaranteed, I'm keeping this one in my collection. The other one, maybe I'll trade off for like the Jimmy Dean race car if somebody wants to do that, or one of the other ones I was talking about. Or I'll tell you what, if somebody wants to pay me enough money that I can go buy the Zippo lighter guitar for it, all right, let's go ahead and do that, because I just love these goofy things. They represent a very experimental time in Gibson's history when they like to do promotional stuff. Gibson doesn't really do so much of this stuff anymore. Now, that doesn't mean that they won't. Like if a company called them up and said, hey, we want 10 Apple guitars, I'm not sure if they would actually do it or not. But the late 90s, early 2000s was a beautiful thing. This is surprisingly well balanced on a strap. It looks goofy. It's not for everybody. I'm sure there's going to be people in the comments section going, that is the dumbest thing I've ever seen. But I don't care. You guys, your mind's just not open enough to really take in the majesty that is the Nascar car guitar. As far as the tones, I thought it was all right. I mean, it's got one P90, so you can only have so much coming out of it. But it's very liberating to play because you have all this room to strum, so it's got that whole one pickup guitar phenomenon going on. The setup wasn't too bad. The Gibson rocks motif on the fretboard is a little bit hard to play. I will say that, because you're used to having markers on certain frets. I mean, sure, you got the side dots on the side as well. But I found, like, when I was doing those bends, taps, and then slides, it's like, okay, so I need to do that at this O, and then go to this O, and then be at the end. Maybe you could use this to teach lessons for, all right, yeah, you're gonna wanna get up by the G, by the Gibson, and... All right, that's enough being silly. I love this guitar, and thank you for tuning in to hear me babble about it. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe, and we will catch you tomorrow on the next episode. Take care. Call me crazy. What if we combine these into a double neck? A double neck race car. That would be ridiculous. But I don't want to hurt these guitars to do that, but that would be a heck of a lot of fun.